On the hot seat tonight, Mayor LaToya Cantrell. We had the opportunity to sit down with her in her office and talk about the first 100 days plus in office. Some pretty pointed questions, some pretty pointed answers. We're obviously sitting in Mayor LaToya Cantrell's office, 100 days plus in office. Everybody likes to go over that first 100 days, 102, 103, 104. Where are we? What do you feel best about 100 days into this thing?
Well, I tell you, with the first quarterly check-in, feeling the best about our ability to work aggressively with FEMA as well as the state to get through at least one of these huge hurdles with an audit that we were undergoing that could have led us to a large portion, billions of dollars of deobligated resources that we desperately need for infrastructure improvements in the city. So we have been able to satisfy in regards to much on the infrastructure tied to the Department of Public Works. We're being very aggressive about it. We're pushing projects out, cutting through the red tape. We are not out of the woods yet. We're still undergoing several other audits, but we're feeling very good about it based on the additional help that FEMA has given us inside City Hall so that we can push these projects forward. Also, I'm very happy that we have been able to identify where some of these bottlenecks, why they, what has caused them. And we have seen an alarming number of firms, particularly architectural firms, that have stalled or have not moved fast enough with getting these projects through design. Prior to being able to draw down from FEMA, you have to be at about 65%. So we saw where projects were stalled at 25%, 35%, not moving at all. However, the city had been paying. And so what we've had to do, and I've had to make calls personally. I had a president of a large corporation in my office just yesterday saying, listen, you have $100 million worth of projects here in the city of New Orleans where you're stuck at 25%. These dollars can be deobligated by FEMA. We need quality work. We need quality people on the ground. And this has to turn around or you will be pulled off the project. So it's those types of conversations that we are having. But first, throughout the first 100 days, is really getting a sense of how deep these holes are.
Let's talk a little bit about the Surge and Water Board. Mm-hmm. You've taken a very personal interest in the Surge and Water Board. People were kind of shocked the other day learning about the pay raises for 3 really high-ranking people in the Surge and Water Board, when everybody's been looking at, the one disaster after the other with the Surge and Water Board. They're going, what the heck? Why are they getting the pay raises? Aren't the other people getting the pay raises? Why are they getting pay raises at all with the way things have been going? What's your answer?
Well, you know what? You can't make it up. You really can't. And the overall situation at the Surge and Water Board requires the level of focus. As it relates to the pay raises, really it's a series of them. One that the Civil Service Commission as well as the New Orleans City Council that I served on approved in November of 2017. Those first pay raises, which is a population of about 1,300 employees, started with your welders, your plumbers, your engineers, that sort of thing, really wanting to levelize pay. So those started in January, followed also April, then came others July, and expected to come by December 2018. Now, that is separate from the top 3 individuals I think you mentioned.
Right.
And so we're being, again, very focused on that as a board, and also consulting with our new executive director who will be starting at the beginning of September. But there will be some changes coming forth, some things that are in the works actually right now, and you'll be privileged to have that information soon.
It begs the question, why not wait until the new director gets in place? Why do this prior to him? Because he may have wanted to do it a different way. What was the rush?
Well, I agree with you with that. What was the rush? But particularly what's more troubling is the retroactive. Because right-sizing pay and compensation in terms of category, but the retroactivity, unacceptable. But the board, we're dealing with that as a board, and we are making changes actually right now.
Right now, we watch it raining outside. Do you get a little something in the pit of your stomach every time a hard rain comes right now?
You
or
know
do you
what?
feel better about what's happening?
Well, I do feel better simply because we have more pumping capacity online than we've had in over a decade. That's a big deal. Even as it relates to the power sources. We're not out of the woods. We have 116 pumps operating out of 120. We have work to do and is underway right now. But we are better off. We have systems in place my administration has put forth to where we are not only talking, but we're boots on the ground with the Sewage and Water Board, as well as right here in the EOC. We have information that I don't have to wait on to get from Sewage and Water Board. I can go, I can see pumps working. We have metrics also in place that we know the projects that are happening even in real time and the coordination between Sewage and Water Board and DPW. Even as it relates to the project delivery unit and procurement, wanting to break down those silos as well. So we have work to do, but I know that we have effective leadership as relates coming on board soon. And won't be a Superman, but I tell you, it will definitely make a difference in stabilizing the organization and bringing trust and faith back into this agency for our people to have.
That, looking in the face of the pay raises, the trust in the organization, that's going to be difficult, isn't it?
Well, it's a long road and it is difficult. But one of at the first phase of the compensation, the raises were for those employees who are in the trenches, who are fixing and working on meters, who are electricians, who are plumbers, who are welders, those who have been overlooked for a mighty long time. And so that is the focus where I will say, absolutely, we have to ensure that we have adequate pay for those who are doing that work. Now, as it relates to those top three, that's another story, and we're dealing with that right now.
Public safety.
Yes.
We haven't seen any surveillance video yet from the Daiquiri shooting. We haven't really. Are we privy to any leads? Are we making progress in that case? Will we see any of that video coming out here anytime soon?
We're making very good progress. The investigators on this matter are relentless, and we do have very good leads. I do not want to compromise the investigation that is ongoing, but I'm feeling very confident about it, and I really have to commend the men and women of NOPD who are taking this personal.
You stepped back a little bit, I felt, when this first happened and allowed Chief Harrison to kind of step forward with handling this investigation. You took some heat, took a little heat for stepping back. Is that the way you're handling things, is to let the people that are, or let the people that are in charge, let the chief handle the chief's business, or?
Sure. Well, one, I don't believe it was an issue of me stepping back. What I did do is lean on leadership that is in place to protect and serve this community at that level. I am not a law enforcement officer. I'm the mayor of the city of New Orleans, and we have leadership in place to speak to what is happening on the ground relative to public safety. That is Superintendent Chief Harrison. And he is doing his job, and he's doing exactly what I've asked him to do. Stand up, be the chief, and it builds morale even within our ranks and with the men and women in NOPD. They need to know that their chief is in charge and that I look to him and will hold him accountable at every level, but he's the chief. I have the chief's back.
Traffic cameras. Y'all finished the study on traffic cameras?
Traffic cameras, the study has been completed, and we are actually dissecting that study right now, providing various options. So my CAO will provide about 5 different options based on that study to therefore make recommendations as to the best way for us to move forward with eliminating these cameras.
You're against those cameras.
I am. I feel that they are a burden. But what we've also found is that they are bringing in a state of revenue that was above what we were told on the front end. But that does not mean that cameras will not come down. It's just how soon and a phased approach And so wanting to be as prudent and as responsible as possible, not creating holes, but being able to live without traffic cameras. And I believe the city of New Orleans can do that. It's just the process in which we move forward.
Anything that in the first 100+ days that you wanted to do that hasn't gotten done, that you feel like you wished had gotten done in this first 100 days?
Oh man, you know, in terms
big
of
list.
well, it's a big list. We have a city with very real challenges, and so I want to do what is necessary to, one, take deeper dives to get to the existing condition and be very open and honest with the public about what the state of this city really is, you know, the shape that we're in. But you know what? I'm extremely hopeful. I'm confident, and we're on the right track. I know that I have effective leadership in place to turn our city around in areas that need to be turned around and keep good things going. And the better, you know, the quality of life of this city will be better because of it. In terms of public safety, what I heard from the public as it relates to drug trafficking in our city, and they see it where they live, and they wanted us to be more aggressive about enforcement. And so with that, starting in May, after the Cantrell administration started, we moved again aggressively on that front. Just over a week ago, we rounded up, the officers did, over 71 drug dealers that are aligned with other criminal activity in this city. The Tiger team on the ground, very effective as well. And I believe, again, that we will continue to put resources where they're needed so that our city can be safer.
That real-time camera situation in the French Quarter.
Yes.
They leap on people.
Well, that was the whole purpose, and that's why I fought for it on the New Orleans City Council, initiating that, which it was adopted by the city, and I am happy because of it. But I'm more excited about expanding its capacity. So we're moving it, we're growing it, but that is a jewel in the city of New Orleans that we will see provide some real resources, you know, the dividends. We'll see a real bite in crime as relates to it, and citywide. So not just targeting or focusing on the French Quarter, but it will be citywide. And we're pulling in more cameras, like for the port, for example. Looking at our schools, integrating them into the real-time crime center. We are bringing in even stakeholders so that they can see the benefit and trying to expand, again, cameras throughout the city of New Orleans, not infringing upon people's civil liberties, but at the same time making sure that we can respond in real time and have footage necessary to bring justice where we need it.
You know, we jumped away from Surge and Water Board. You guys are now, the city is, what, 44 or so that have been cut off. Still, what, 4,000 or so disputed bills?
Well, on the disputed bills, we're still wrestling around 4,500. You know, I'm looking so forward to leadership coming in to sustain this organization so that I can feel very confident in what I'm telling you is true. But what I do know and what I've been told is that we're still wrestling around that 4,500 of disputed bills. The shutoffs don't impact those disputes at all.
Right.
And if we make a mistake, I'm making sure boots are on that ground so that we can rectify that mistake. And so right now, we have not turned off anyone's water that hasn't paid in over 365 days to 690 days. And we will stay focused on that population, again, not touching at all those who continue to suffer from these from their bills being inaccurate. It's unacceptable. We're taking it very serious, but I am looking forward to some leadership coming to Sewage and Water Board. The city of New Orleans is moving forward with a slow opening of our shelter, our Lowberry shelter. We're moving forward even with integrating a sobering center in this city. We are wanting to clean our city up, and it's not just looking at people as trash because they're not, but wanting to meet them where they are, and at the same time, clean this city up. We have trash everywhere. We have blight, vacant, overgrown lots, and you will see more coming from the Cantrell administration as the weeks move forward.
You know, I've often thought about that. Cities that are clean feel better.
They do.
People up their ante, up their game a little bit.
I believe it. I believe that. It's not cliche. It has an impact on people, behaviors of people, and your overall quality of life. And so enforcement is something that we heard very clearly from the public that they want this city to take serious. And we will be rolling out enforcement mechanisms, and I want people to stand with me on that because it will have a positive impact on the city of New Orleans, and we need that. We deserve it.
Yeah, it makes things positive.
It does.
Puts a positive thing on.
The 911 Center, we are turning that around. We're taking it as an opportunity to again re-engineer that 911, the Orleans Parish Communications District is what it's called.
Y'all fired a guy that was there before.
We had to let someone go. We did, but we have effective leadership in place that really is going to move our call center into the 21st century. I'm looking to move even 311 to a 24/7 operation located at the call center. We're moving towards evidence-based practices in the city of New Orleans, and we have revenue there. With that, having to make that change, we also found an additional $1.6 million that were being hidden we didn't know about, but we know now. So it's about being effective. And folks who are not a part of that process, well, we just have to move them to the side, but with love and with respect. It's work, again, that needs to be done, and issues you just can't make them up.
No.
Sometimes you have to cry, laugh to keep from crying, but at the end of the day, there's no need to cry because we are in this together and we can bring about the changes our city needs.
You knew this was a big job to begin with. That's why you took it.
And we can do it.
There you go. And as you hear, a lot on the plate of Mayor LaToya Cantrell. There could be a lot more coming down the pike. Guys, back to you.